Alrighty guys, so welcome back to today's video. Like I mentioned previously, we'll be starting off a new series. Gonna be tuning my X daily. It's a 96 Pulsar. It has a Speeduino UA4C wired in parallel with the factory ECU. It's an automatic transmission. Otherwise it's a stock car. Off the bat, so we're going to be starting off with the Speeduino Basemap, and then we're going to pretty much cover every step from here. Today we hope to cover building the Basemap and getting it to idle and sorting out all the initial settings to get it working properly. What can I say? It's wired using the basic distributor. It's wired in batch. I don't have idle control. I left the idle control with the factory ECU, but I'll still show you what are the basic settings to get idle control working. Fuel pump is controlled by the factory ECU, and I think that's about it. It does have AC, does have everything. Automatic transmission does make it a little bit tricky to get the idle and just off idle portions correct, since when you put it in drive or any gear for that matter, it loads up the engine a bit. So I'm gonna go straight into that. I'm gonna be using the OBS software, and hopefully audio and the video turns out good. Right, now enough talking, let's get on with today's video. So what we have here, we have a project open. We're not gonna cover setting up a project or anything of that sort right now, since we have some pretty good videos already available on it. So what we're going to do first and foremost, I already have a Basemap in there, so I'm going to go ahead. We're going to load the official Speeduino base tune. See if I can find that. So this is the generic Speeduino base tune. I'm going to go ahead and start with that, and we'll walk you through everything. Already connected to the ECU, so it's sending the changes directly to the Speeduino. So for whatever reason, it's asking us to power cycle. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and just quickly put the USB cord and reconnect. And just like that, we've power cycled. So next up, we're going to go into the Basemap settings, and then we're going to adjust a few things to get it sorted. Now, the Basemap is a pretty good Basemap. You can have a look here, see if everything changed. So this is Speeduino's generic fuel table. So everything is changed over. Previous videos I've already shown you can use this Basemap and just change simple stuff like your coil output, your trigger settings, the essential stuff just to get it running, and on the factory compensation tables, the VE table and the SPAC table, you can get the car to start. But we're going to go a bit further than that today. So to start off with, we're just going to go through most of the settings and adjust accordingly. So most importantly, we're going to go into here. We're going to adjust the required fuel, right? So it has already saved most of my stuff from my previous setup, but this engine is a 1500cc engine, and we have 200cc injectors. So we're going to go into that. We can see the required fuel changed a bit. It's going to ask us to power cycle some more, but we're not going to do that just yet because we have a few more changes which will require us to power cycle. Squirts per cycle, this can stay. Everything here can stay. It's a 4-cylinder, 4 injectors, even fire. We're using gasoline, so stoichiometric is 14.7. The only thing we need to change here is the board. We are using a UA4C, which is this one. Okay, we're burning changes, but we still need to power cycle. So on the engine constants, we're pretty much set. Next up, we go into the injector characteristics. I already made a video covering most of that, but the long and short of it, if you're unsure of your injector opening time, just leave it at 1.0 and then you adjust this map down here, these injector voltage corrections. But since I have pretty good injector data for mine, it's a relatively new engine, so we're gonna go into here like this, and I'm going to adjust my injector characteristics. So generally, if we look here, we'd see about here 100%. So right here would be the injector opening time would be 0.7, and you can see as the voltage drops, we add some compensation to that. So I'm going to throw in some numbers in here, numbers that I use for my car, and then we'll pick up with that in a second. So just changing the injector voltage right now. 15 in here, 17, and right here this will stay at 100 to go down as voltage goes up. 94, first number like 80 here. These are numbers I know off the top of my head that worked on this car, so they can be a bit off, 10%, 15%, and you can always tweak them afterwards. Alrighty. Open time only. Make sure you don't use the whole pulse width. You can leave injector duty at 90%. We hit burn, and we're done with injector settings. Trigger settings. The Basemap comes with missing tooth. Like I said, we're using the basic distributor. If I recall correctly, my trigger angle is about 73 degrees. But if you're unsure about yours, you can put in a number you think is close after you've done all the settings, and then you can just go ahead and set use a timing light with this setting. Gonna skip ahead a little bit. So what you can do, you can go in here and you can set this here to whatever your crank pull is showing. Say maybe you have a 8-degree mark reference on your crank pulley, and you enable fixed timing. So during cranking, this would cause the ECU to just be locked at 8 degrees, and you can go ahead in here, trigger settings, and you can just adjust this trigger until you get the ECU to flash on your Mac. So you adjust the trigger angle. You can go up, you can go down until you get it within range. So again, I know mine is 73, so we're gonna start off with that. We're gonna skip 2 revolutions, and everything else looks to be good. So I'm using the rising edge, and my trigger filter is off. It's a Hall sensor, so they almost never have any noise, but you can try weak if you're using a VR and adjust it accordingly as you go along. So before I forget, I'm gonna turn that off. All right, we'll get back to that. All right. So under the injector, the air intake temperature density corrections, just gonna go into here, and I'm going to basically enter 100. This car does not have an air intake temperature sensor, so 100 means I want absolutely no correction since I don't have a temperature sensor to be referencing from. Barrel, you can leave that for now. We're not going to mess with that. Acceleration enrichment, can leave that be for now. Or what you can do in the meantime is just go ahead and turn this all the way up, the threshold, so you don't have acceleration enrichment kicking in at all whilst we doing our initial tuning. So we go with that. Next we're gonna go to here. So the wideband, we're using a wideband sensor. We are no correction, so closed loop O2 feedback is not going to be turned on. So we have no correction. Later on, we can go ahead and use simple or use the PID settings to get that sorted. The limiters. So we have a soft limit of, this engine normally revs up to, I believe, 7,000 from factory, but we can leave the 6,500 for now. Let's go ahead. All of these can stay. It's not boosted, so we can lower this a bit. If your car was boosted, it'll be wise to set your boost cut to something low. Atmospheric pressure, this car is naturally aspirated, so atmospheric pressure is about 95 at wide open throttle. So you just set it so that if it ever goes above maybe about a pound and a half of boost, it would hit the boost cut. Usually set this to both, so it cuts both fuel and spark. Okay, where will we? The VE table. I generally like to rescale my VE table. Right, so the screen is a bit dark. Let me brighten this up a bit. All right, so I'm not sure if you can do this on the free version of Tuner Studio, but I like to go in here and then rescale my tables. Hope I'm not boring you guys. Trying to cover every single step so this guide is as complete as possible. And I'm basically just increasing my breakout points by 500 RPM, which is pretty good for one of these motors. If you have a bike or something, your spread might be a bit higher since you need to cover some high RPMs in your map. All right. Gonna go adjust here a bit. 26, 30, 56, 40, 46, 50, 56, 60, 66, 70, 76. All right, so that's good right there. Can call that good. So we go ahead and hit apply. Yeah, so what it did is basically just rescaled our set points here. So the map stayed the same, but it went ahead and it rescaled the set points. So you can call that good. All right, so we're gonna have to do the same for the spark table. $4,500, 5,000. What did I set there? Forgot what I started with on the. Okay, so we started with 20 here. Can leave the 10. The 10 can work with. So we're going to go into here. 20, 26, 30. Normally I'll do 20, 25, but in Tuner Studio, for some reason, you cannot enter 25 with the Speeduino map. So let me try here. See if we try to enter 35 here. Oh, we actually can. So you may need to go back on the spark map, the fuel map, and adjust it for the 5s. Previously, you could not do it. Something must have changed over the last few weeks. All right, so for the spark map, since we're already on it, I'm gonna go ahead and just adjust it. So these motors generally idle about down here. Idle would basically be this section. This section generally, say about here. This section generally starts like about 11 degrees. Again, your motor might be different. So we're just gonna go ahead and let's breathe through it, try and create a map quickly. So again, just click here, maybe 25, start here, and I basically click from here all the way across, and I interpolate. Then you can go here, all the way across, and interpolate some more. All right, gonna take down all of these. So we want about 15 degrees here. And go ahead, interpolate. Basically going to go here again and add about 3 degrees. So I'm just going to hit the Q button. 1, 2, 3. 3 clicks. I'm going to go into here. Let's go about 1, 2, 3 clicks again. These two ends. And interpolate. Interpolate again. So this is a pretty decent, safe map to get started. Right? Still believe we can go in here. Okay, so it's gonna flatten this out a bit. 25. And interpolate. Then I'm gonna go into here and add about 2 clicks. Add a click here and try and smoothen it out a bit. So highlight the entire portion and smoothen it out. So we have a pretty conservative map, if I may say so. So again, just roughing this out. Add some more. Alright, so still be enough to get us started. Again, you won't blow this car on that. So you can see generally higher RPMs, we just hitting about 24, 25 degrees of ignition. That's plenty safe for most setups. Big blocks, small displacement. This car more than likely want more, but it's a good starting point. Right, next up, the dwell settings. I generally go about 0.9 here. But other than that, these settings work just fine. The base settings. IAT retard, just like the fuel compensation, we want no ignition retard. So we're just going to set all of this to 0. Cool advance, same thing, set to 0. Alright, so for the cranking, these settings look okay. Probably just go in here, add a few clicks here, maybe a bit more here. A bit more. A bit more. Yeah. Generally, that's within the ballpark. Can lower this down a bit. You can do about 5 seconds. Don't need a fuel pump primer. Then again, on this setup, it won't make a difference since the ECU is not controlling the fuel pump. Alright, so for the priming pulse, we're gonna add a bit more here. So at 0, we're gonna do about 2.5 milliseconds. Yeah, we're gonna go about 20. Yeah, actually 2. We're gonna go 1.5 milliseconds there and about a second. That can work for now. Oh, and the all important warm-up enrichment. So off the top of my head, I like to keep things a bit symmetrical. So just gonna go ahead. You can start off with this, it will work just fine. But again, just since we had it, just gonna adjust it to what I like to see. I like to see nice flowing numbers. Then we're in the Caribbean, so we almost never go below about 20 degrees. But it always helps. You never know where the map will end up. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and consider car fully warmed up at about 72 degrees Celsius. We're dealing in Celsius here, by the way. Okay, so we don't need, can go in here, throw in some rough numbers. 115, 3, 2, we got 20 degrees, go 111, at 50 degrees, you can go 109, 40, 108, 5, and basically at 72 degrees we'll be adding nothing. So getting us in the ballpark. So we just did warm up. We're gonna go into after start. I've noticed that the after start on the base map is usually pretty rich. So this one is the amount of after start enrichment. So at 0 degrees Celsius, just after you start, you'll add 25%. Right? At 40, you can step that down a bit to about 20%. At 80, you can step down a bit at 15%. And at 100, we can go ahead and keep the 15%. And again, going down here, this is the amount of time you add in the after start enrichment. So again, so when it's really cold, we want to keep it after start going a bit longer, so 20%. Then we can step that down to 15% at 40 degrees Celsius. At 80, you can do about 10. And at 100, you can keep 10. All right, so again, let's go to our cycle. We made a lot of changes. All right. Well, let's have to start idle control. Well, I'm gonna turn that on just to show you guys, just for demonstration purposes, but I won't be using it, so I'm gonna leave it off. So to start off with, you can start off with here, open loop. Since open loop works best for most persons, pretty much most idle control valves are single wire. So you put that here, you enter your frequency here, right? And you go back here. This is your duty cycle. This is when the car is actually running. So this is pretty good to start off with. However, generally, I would set my scale to maybe about the same thing, about -20, -10, and whatnot, and you'd probably just increase this a fair bit, because most idle control valves, from what I have seen, idle anywhere in the 30, well, when fully warmed, idle anywhere from 30 to about 45% duty cycle. So you can go here, just hit the multiply tab, and you can probably hit 1.5, so you pretty much add in 50% to that. And I would even venture to say you add another 50%, so you can probably double it easily. And that would be a fair starting point for you in regards to the cranking duty cycle. See what we have here. For some reason, this is a reverse, so I would normally just go into here and probably put something like 0 degrees, maybe put something like 20 degrees here. And here we can probably do 40 and 80. In here, you'd obviously, for some reason I'm noticing this is reverse, but at 0 degrees, I'd probably do something like 70% duty cycle. I would probably go here, put something like 60. At 40, probably go 50. And at warm, I'd probably do something like maybe 45. That's a fair starting point. Again, I won't be able to show you how to actually tune idle control on that, since I don't have an idle control valve hooked up to this ECU. But if you find that after you tune your car, you need to use the throttle to start a bit, this is the table you adjust. You basically open up the valve by adding some bigger numbers here. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off, since again, I don't have idle control settings. Alright, so we're almost there, guys. So last but not least, let's see this back table. Alright, so that's the first starting point. Last but not least, we're gonna do the FEL ratio target tables. Again, I'm gonna need to adjust my tables. If anyone who is part of the Tuner Studio team and they're listening, go ahead and make something so that we don't have to go into every table and adjust the breakpoints. It would be nice that if I adjust one of my tables, that every single one of them gets adjusted. So it's really hot out today. $6,000, $6,500, $7,000, $75. Okay, gonna go there. Same thing, 20, 25, 30, 56, 40. Yeah, so we're in the ballpark again. So this motor is a naturally aspirated motor. So you can see here, we're only going up to 100 kPa, which is just about wide open throttle NA. As to the FEL ratios, your car, I like to say, you can start off with something a bit on the rich side. So up here, you can go ahead in this section, anywhere above here. If you're on sea level, your altitudes are on sea level, you would be at wide open throttle, anywhere about here. cruising is generally this section here. So anywhere from here all the way up to about here, 4500. Okay, we haven't adjusted, so about here would be cruising. Idle is generally this section, like I said, and anything here we almost never in that. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply my new. And quick way I like to do my fuel ratio table, simple, takes almost no time. So I go ahead here, I like this entire thing, and just type in 14.7. So this entire section. Again, my idle, I like it a bit rich because car is a bit is batch fire. So this one here, so my idle section, I'm basically just going to type in 14.2 to start off with. Generally, I can get it up to 14.4, 14.7, but it's usually easier with just targeting a slightly rich fuel ratio. And 14.7, this is stoich. Okay, and wide open throttle. I'm gonna go ahead and target 13.2. Right? And again, simple. I go in here. I go in here and I interpolate. Probably go in here, make it a bit leaner because it's just. I go in here. This corner here. Okay. And I remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I say about 14 more. There about. And I go here, about 2 cells over. Highlight here. And I interpolate. Basically, just trying to make it a bit smooth. And that should be plenty safe to start off with. Right, so cruise, we're gonna be targeting a 14.7. We go up into wide open throttle, we're targeting a 13.2, which is pretty safe. All right, almost there, guys. So now that you pretty much have a base map set, we need to calibrate a few things. So we're gonna go into here. First thing I'm gonna do is to calibrate my wideband. I'm using an Innovate LC2. So just go ahead and drop down, select that, and I'm gonna hit right to controller. All right, so again, I'm gonna need to calibrate for my temperature sensors. I'm not gonna bother with the, okay, so my settings are already there from the previous tune, but I'm not gonna bother with the air temp sensor. Could care less since I don't have an air temp sensor. But generally, this would be this for you 99.9% of the time. However, my car is a bit different. I wired up I pretty much shed the coolant temp sensor, so the Speeduino is adding its own bias resistance. The factory is adding it. Normally, if I use the 2490, it would almost guarantee that my temperature would be really low. So just play around with it. This may not work for you. If just go ahead and enter the correct settings. But for me, my case, this is what works for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that into here. Okay, so the write is complete. Again, on the spec settings, one thing we forgot to check, but here, single channel, since we have a single coil, right? Again, power side. Okay, just gonna do a final check. I think I covered everything. Okay, firmware fan. Go ahead and turn that on. You can leave everything as is. Only thing I need to do, raise my temperature. So I need my fan to come on about 85 degrees Celsius, and then it'll switch off when it drops down 2 degrees below that, so about 83. I have an 80 degrees Celsius thermostat in my car, so that's perfect. Okay, gonna make sure all of these are turned off. Won't be using that. This is turned off, this is turned off, and everything else is turned off. So this is essentially all we need to get the Basemap sorted. Right, so we're gonna power side. Everything is good. I'm gonna go and turn my key on. Then it should be about 27, yeah, 27 degrees. It's about the temperature outside now. So last thing I need to do, I need to calibrate my TPS. Again, close throttle, I just hit get current. So it's here, then I go wide open throttle. I hit get current, let go, then I hit accept. So, just about done. Now, moment of truth, we're going to try and start the car. This car is more than likely going to be very rich just by looking at the fuel map. So, my required fuel, something just happened. Okay, yeah. So my required fuel, here's how I approach that. So this is my required fuel. It's proper for my setup. Some folks recommend you adjust the required fuel when you start it up. I don't. Reason being, this is where I make all my adjustments. It's gonna start up, it's gonna be very rich when we start off with. Number one, a few tricks I've learned over the years. If you're starting off, when this car is fully tuned, your numbers in this section, wide open throttle, generally are a reflection of the volumetric efficiency of your engine. All right, let me go ahead and turn off my key. The wideband is staying on. So most engines in this section end up in the high 60s to mid 80s range. 60s if the engine flows really horribly or the engine vitals are not good, like piston rings and whatnot. I've only ever seen one engine approach 100, and that was the free FGE Alteza I did. So off the bat, I can see right here, this would probably be off by about 20 to 30%. It will be about 20 to 30% too rich. This section here generally is in the ballpark. Generally, if everything else is set good, doesn't work for every single car, but if everything is set within the tune good, you'd end up in this range, 30s to 40s, give or take. Here, we'd probably end up in the 60s, 50s to 60s, and then we'll probably end up somewhere in the, if I recall correctly, in the 60s or 70s at wide open throttle. But anyways, let's go ahead and try to start, see what happens. Okay, so at this point, we're going to allow the wideband to warm up. So we started up. Again, Basemap, we just should be pretty rich. That's fine, 2.7 milliseconds. Generally, these cars would be in the low 1.5s, give or take. So I'm expecting to see a pretty rich fuel ratio right now. Again, yeah. So you might be tempted to go ahead and just adjust the wideband now. I recommend leaving it. Not the wideband, sorry, the fuel table. I recommend leaving it, although I know the fuel table is too rich. Let the car warm up, and then when it's warm, you'll take corrective steps. So it's not overly rich, 12.0, 12.3, give or take. So you can see gamma enrichment is here. So it's warming up. So if we go in the warm-up settings, you'll see 1.9. So we are right around here. So we add in 9% of the warm-up enrichment to the car. Right, so we're going to allow it to warm up. At this point, it'll be a good time to, if you got your car started, verify your timing. So you go in here, again, spark settings, you enable your fixed timing. Here, mine is set to 0, but yours will be whatever you need. So when you're done, you unlock that. Again, you will change the trigger angle to get the timing working just fine. You can see that my idle dropped a bit when I locked it at 0, and that is because that's a bit, the spark advance 0, which would be right around TDC, it would be 11 degrees retarded than what I'm targeting for idle. So hence why the RPM dropped a bit. Right? And that's essentially it. Another thing you might need to do at that point, if you have an idle control valve, you may need to, based on this, your idle speed, you may need to adjust it if it's idling too low or too high. You can try to target about 1100 to start off with till you get the idle sorted out. And you can take it from there after that. I usually try 1100 when it's warming up. Again, you would be going in here, the idle control, I'll have it turned off, and then just be adjusting the duty cycle. Not the cranking, just the duty cycle of the car to get it warmed up. And in here, I just have my gauge set up, so you can see I have all the stuff I usually look at. So I have right here, I have RPM, throttle position, map. I have battery voltage, coolant temperature, gamma enrichment. Still have 5% since the car is not fully warmed up yet. Air fuel ratio, injector pulse wave, my spark advance. My target air fuel ratio should be what I would be targeting. And lambda, I'm trying to make the switch in my brain because I need to learn how to use lambda. I know how to use it, but just need to get myself more familiar with it. Hence why I have the numbers in the background here, just so I can familiarize myself with that. So you can see about 12.2 thereabout is 0.84 lambda. This is what I would probably be targeting wide open throttle and maybe small turbo Miata or 10 psi of boost. This is where I'd be targeting it for. For now, I can say for sure the map is too rich. And again, we just created the map, just numbers, just experience will get you the numbers you need to work. The numbers for the warm up, mine, you can probably try adding. Okay, let's do a visual here. I'm actually gesticulating with my hand, thinking that you guys can see me. So to start off with, this may be a bit too lean detail for your setup, so you can just go in here, everything but the 72, just add 5 to 10% just to start off with. Mine has already been tuned. I know these numbers work for my setup, so add 5 to 10%. So you can just go here, highlight all of that, all of these, and then just hit the plus key, and you can add 5 to it. To get you in the ballpark. You can see as my car is warming up, the factory ECU is controlling the idle control valve, so you can see my fuel ratios are dropping. That and the fact that it's really rich. A really rich mixture would get you a lower idle speed. And as you start to lean out the car and advance timing, there's a healthy relation between the two. Then you would begin to get the the idle speed that you need. For this car, I usually try to target about 1,000. On a manual transmission, I'll try to target about 900, but I'm happy with anything about 1,000. When I put it in drive, it usually drops down to about 800, so that's perfectly fine with me. Right, so we're almost warmed up. So when we're done, we'll just be going in the VE table and just be adjusting that. The way I like to tune idle, now there are various ways of doing this. For me, I find I go in here and I like to have a healthy relation between my target idle speed. So you'll be adjusting your idle control duty cycle. I like to have here, I like to have healthy torque. So I like to have the lowest number here in my vacuum so the engine is working at optimum. And the fuel ratios need to be in check. Usually on a sequential injection car, you can do the 14.7. Some folks do 14.7 for emission purposes. Some folks do slightly richer than that to have the car warm up. Different tricks, different parts of the world. Some folks use more ignition advance or less ignition advance. Some use less just to light off the catalytic converter. I usually just keep mine as is. So you find what works for you. There's no right or wrong way to tune idle or tuning on the whole. It comes from experience. Everyone has their style. Again, you just need to know what exactly you're doing, why you're doing it, and then again, my style may not be yours, but the general principles remain the same. So we're almost getting there. So another thing you need to also realize is that spark advance affects fuel ratio as well. Generally, these small displacement motors, I like to run as little spark advance as possible. In that way, there's a table here. I think it's turned off, but you can use the advance to control your ignition timing. And you also need to have you may have heard this a lot, but you may hear folks saying that you need to have a torque reserve. That is very, very important, especially with an automatic transmission. What would happen is that there's a curve, and the more timing you add to the car, basically you add in more torque. You don't want to advance the timing all the way at idle, and then when you have stuff which adds load to the car, headlights, you put it in drive or whatever, you need a torque reserve if not the car will stall. But if you advance the timing all the way, say I go in my spark table and I put 20 degrees here, all fine and good, it'll probably idle just fine. But say I need to adjust my idle with timing, and then my idle dips, and I tell the ECU to add 2 degrees or 3 degrees to raise the idle. The fact that it's already maxed out at the 20 degrees, there's no torque reserve, the 2 degrees won't do anything. However, if I'm at my 11 degrees and I'm idling fine, and then for whatever reason my idle drops, and I decide I need an idle bump, and I can simply just come on an extra 2 degrees, and then that will raise my idle. So that is what they call the torque reserve. Right, so we just about operating temperature, 72 degrees. You can see gamma enrichment went off. We're idling about 12.2, 12.5. So we're just going to go into here. Right? You can do some math. 12 over 12.2 over your target 14.2. Let's see if we can get that. Right? See if we can get some math. I'm bring up my calculator. Let's see if the math works. So we have an fuel ratio of about 12.3. So we go 12.3. Right, the target is about 14.2. And we see we have 86. So basically we're about 13% off. So if we go in here, say we had we from 100, 100% is full. So we go 0.87. Okay, so I'm gonna go into here again, flatten this out a bit. So we go in here again. Stop it. So we can see idle speed went up. So we go in here again. And we try. At this point, you'd probably go into your idle control valve to lower it a bit. So we try moving another 5%. So we go 0.95. So we go in here, we put another 5%. So you can see we're getting a bit leaner, closer to our targets. At this point here, we can probably leave that be. We can also go in here, try going down one number. Right, so we can see about here, our engine sound is pretty happy. About 14.3, 14.4, give or take. It does cycle a little bit. Again, it's not perfect for now. Battery voltage is steady. And you can see at idle, likes about a 1.3 milliseconds. And it's almost steady, low 14s. So we can leave that be for now. Again, let's try the spark. Let's see the relation spark has on. Let's clean up this a bit. Don't need you just yet. Close this. I'm gonna open up the spark table. You may hear a whining sound in the background. That is actually my alternator. One of the bearings is gone bad. So we can try adding 2 degrees to here. You can see, got some better vacuum. Let's pull it out again. See? So we can go here, pull 2 degrees. Okay, so we're going in the wrong direction. So we go here, so we start off here on 11, 30 kPa, pull 2 degrees. Go in the wrong way. So we add it. So we take out 1. So we can see right on the edge of our torque reserve. That's how I like to do it anyways. So then I will go back here. Doesn't sound completely happy. Cannot really pick it up, but add 1 number to it. Sounds much better. So you can see the advancing and the retarding of the ignition does affect the air fuel ratios a fair bit. So we pull in pretty good vacuum. Again, this is not the freshest of motors, so I'm pretty happy with this for now. And this is essentially just, can go ahead and right now we'll just be burning all our changes. Okay, so at this point we can pretty much call idle air fuel ratio tune. Right, my fan just came on, 85 degrees. You can hear it in the background. Not sure if you can pick it up on camera, but it just came on. So essentially, we started up a Basemap. We did idle tuning, and the next step after that is just more tuning. We can go ahead at this point here. If you were unsure, if your idle is already tuned at that point here, you would go into your voltage correction. Right? If your numbers, if you just started with some numbers and you were not sure. So I can go in here. Need to let my temperatures go down a bit. So the fan can go off. We're at 13. Okay, let's see if we can get that. Yeah, alright. 13 volts. So if I turn on my headlights, see if my dead times and corrections are good, then my air fuel ratios should stay within range. Alright, so let's look at the VE table. So you can see above here, we might need a couple more clicks. So you can see just above our idle spot, so we can go in here, add a click here, add a click here. Because the voltage corrections are basically a multiplier of your VE table. So if the VE table is not properly dialed, then you cannot dial that in just yet. But it's just showing you the quick relation between the two. Alright, so I can go ahead and turn my headlights off. See the relation, we're about a 14.2, give or take, turn it back on, goes up a little bit, and then settles. So it may need a click here or there, but for the most part, it's okay. And then you do that, you can go ahead and turn on, I can go ahead and turn on my AC. Alright, so you can see air fuel ratios. Hope you can still hear me over the sound of the blower. So what would happen is that the table more than likely went into a portion where we have not tuned. Correct. So here we did not tune here. So the dead times may be correct, but again the VE table has not been tuned. So this is the multiplier of that. So if this is off, this will be off as well. Okay, so go ahead, wrap up for the day. Already, I show you guys how to make a Basemap, how to go through most of the settings and get your car sorted. Get it to idle. So at this point there, we'll probably just, we don't if idle, we can do some steady state tuning just with the car parked where it is now. Go ahead and switch off. Okay, so like I was saying, so with the car just parked here, we can load the car. We can probably put a brick or something in front of the wheel, put it in drive, and then just do the areas just above the idle. So we can do that, and then after that we can go into cruising. But this is essentially going to cover it for now, right? So leave a comment down below if you thought I missed anything, if you have a different tactic, different way of doing it, but this is how I do it. So in a nutshell, guys, that's going to cover the remote tuning, not remote tuning, the the startup video for the idle and the first, I guess, the first installment of this video, right? So we're approaching about an hour, so gonna wrap up now, right?